All right, welcome the boys from Biscuits and SEC, the Hammer, Boss Man Slim, coming in the house to talk all about taking down Alabama. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to preview all the games from this week. Obviously, we're going to start out with Alabama and Texas A&M because we need to talk about that. Anyway, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, Steven. Good to be back. I know I missed a week for work, but I couldn't miss this one to talk about A&M and Alabama and then the rest of this week coming up. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to take anything away from what y'all did, but I never thought I'd see the day that Alabama would come in flat after playing Ole Miss.
No kidding. No
Never
kidding.
thought I'd see that day.
Yeah, it was. We could not be doing better, I guess, other than maybe if we only had one loss in the loss column instead of two. But obviously, all things considered, a wild weekend, a great weekend to be an A&M fan. And it was that was one of the most surprising things to me was to see A&M jump out to that early lead. That's something you really don't see Alabama start slow very often. We obviously, you knew as that game was going on that they were going to come at some point. You can't hold them back for a whole game. And A&M was just able to withstand that, and they took Alabama's punches through some of their own, and eventually, it came down to in the fourth quarter. A&M hadn't been able to stop them all second half. Suddenly, they get a 3-and-out after Calzada had tied the game and gets injured. A&M forces a 3-and-out, and then Calzada is magically healed after he comes out of the injury tent and leads them right back down. So it was just an awesome game, for an A&M fan, and I think for college football fans as well, because everybody likes to unite as one when someone is close to beating Alabama. So
Yeah.
it was a great weekend.
Yeah, I got texts from friends that I hadn't talked to, in a few years, texted me out of the blue. I didn't even answer those texts until Sunday. My phone just blew up as soon as the game was over. Because, like Hank said, people unite around beating Alabama, no matter who it is. So, it was a fascinating game. Usually, in those type of games, a big underdog, you need kind of a few things to happen. You need to have somebody who plays possessed on offense. For A&M, that was Zach Calzada. Everybody has to play, above their usual level, which A&M did across the board. You got to have a special teams play, a big special teams play. A&M got that with the Devon A-Chain, 95-yard, 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown after Alabama had a special teams touchdown. So, I got to be honest, when I saw that special teams touchdown for Alabama, I was like, oh, here we go. Because if they get one of those, usually they're going to beat you. They're probably going to kick your tail. So I thought the onslaught was coming. And then when I saw A-Chain, return that 96 yards, I was like, wow, we can do this. Had belief. So it was an awesome game to watch. It was a great game for college football. Those are the games we love, college football. A&M had no reason to win that game. After the last 2 weeks, after the Colorado game, they looked terrible on offense. And I told this to somebody as well, that for the last 2 weeks and really the whole season up to that point, A&M had looked very vanilla on offense. Jimbo was running the same stuff. He was putting it on Calzada and saying, hey, this is what we run, this is what we run, this is what we run. But it's very obvious when you watch that game early on that A&M had this game circled on the schedule and that Jimbo was holding a ton back and he didn't put a lot on film in order to catch Alabama off guard. I don't think Alabama had seen most of what A&M was running on film up to that point, which caught them off guard, obviously, and allowed them to get in a rhythm.
Yeah, and their blitz package on defense of their overload, they kind of messed with Alabama all night. It was really interesting because you don't see teams at the line of scrimmage treat Alabama the way that A&M did. That was probably where the upset happened in that game.
Yeah, I agree. You could not have called a better defensive game plan, in my opinion. Obviously, Alabama still scored. They scored 31 points on offense, not including the special teams touchdown. But exactly what you said, they got pressure on Bryce Young all night. I think they had 4 sacks in the game. Alabama had none somehow. And even when they weren't sacking him, he was uncomfortable. And Bryce Young didn't play a bad game. He played very well. It was just one of those things where A&M had the offensive line confused. They were bringing pressure from all different directions. And typically, that's not something you see teams do to Alabama. A lot of teams are a little bit more cautious because they're scared of getting beat over the top on the back end. And it's been the case in the past, right? When you've got Tua and Mac Jones, they'll destroy you on a blitz. But it didn't happen. A&M was able to get pressure and get home, and it really affected that game. So that was a great game plan by Elko, and credit to the A&M defense for executing and also holding up on the back end, and not letting those big plays, chunk plays happen very often.
Yeah, Alabama had a ton of yards at the end of the night. If you look at the stat sheet, right, and A&M had a pretty good defense up to this point, but that on Saturday night was what A&M fans have been waiting to see from their defense all year. That was a complete team effort. They got big plays when they needed them. The Leon O'Neal, fumble recovery, the Damani Richardson interception in the end zone, that stops a drive and stops them in the red zone. And then, the defensive line played out of their minds. I think A&M had 4 or 5 sacks on the night, including one from Leon O'Neal at the safety position. So they were flying around the field early on. In the preseason, A&M fans were looking at this defense thinking this is what the defense is going to look like. And finally, we saw them put it together against the best team in the nation. And, everybody did their job. And that was, we haven't even mentioned the fact that A&M they're basically a hospital at this point. You look at their roster and all these starters are out. You had two of your starting corners, Brian George, a backup, and a starting corner, Miles Jones, out. So you're starting Tyreek Chappell at the corner, who's a freshman. So you're thinking, look, we should get beaten every which way in this game. And somehow everybody played up to an incredible level for one magical night to win, because Alabama probably wins that game 99 out of 100.
Yeah, and we're just going to move into the next week, and we're going to start with the A&M and Missouri game because that is relevant. How concerned are you of a potential letdown going up to Columbia this game?
Go ahead, Alex.
I think there is some potential for a letdown, obviously, right? I mean, this is the classic thing. A&M's coming off a huge win, and Missouri just looks down. They look like a bad team. Their defense doesn't look good. They gave up a ton of points to North Texas, who has no business being in the game with Mizzou. I think they're 1-4 or 1-5 now after losing to Mizzou. So, North Texas is not good and still put up points on Mizzou. I'm not that worried about a letdown, to be honest. I think that game showed that A&M knows what they're doing going forward. Zach Calzada now has confidence. The defense for A&M, I don't think, gives up a lot of points to Mizzou. So I really don't think that there's much of a chance of a letdown. I think A&M starts to kind of ride a wave of confidence now. I think it's going to start to click for them. And I just don't think that Mizzou has the horses to run with A&M right now.
Yeah, I agree. This may be the maroon Kool-Aid talking here, but I think A&M wins this game pretty big. Missouri is very bad at the moment, especially on defense. They're 130th right now nationally in run defense. They can't stop anybody. North Texas scored 35 on them last week. North Texas is 1-4, so they're a bad team. And I think A&M, as much as this might be a letdown spot, typically they've sort of already had their letdown. They've already lost twice. They can't afford a letdown. And if you look at, I know it's last year, so it's a totally different team, but they started the season slow last year. And then after Alabama whipped them, they got up, beat Florida, and then they won the rest of their games. So this team and Jimbo, he knows how to rally the troops, so to speak. And I think that'll be the case here. I'm not saying they're going to win out. There's a lot more difficult games down the road, but Missouri is not one of those games. So I think they'll win pretty handily.
Jimbo mentioned something in his news conference. I think it was either today or yesterday, basically just saying, hey, Alabama's over. We're done with that. Taking the Saban 24-hour rule, right? That's the mentality of this team, and I think he's going to have them on the same page going forward. And, I expect an A&M win.
Okay. All right, just want to check in with that. Let's get into the game of the week. That is the Georgia and Kentucky battle of undefeateds from the SEC East. Georgia actually is a 22.5 point favorite. The game is on CBS, and the over/under is sitting at 44.5. There, it. I don't know if the over/under on just the number of points Ole Miss or Tennessee would score would be less than that. But they're predicting that. So this is going to be an old school SEC game apparently. 22 points, so they're thinking it's probably 31-10 ish, kind of on the score line. What do you guys think?
I think that's pretty spot on, and I hate to say that because I love what Mark Stoops has done in Kentucky. I think they have a good team. That was a big win last week after they beat Florida. To have LSU come to town and not just win, but really whoop LSU and just take them behind the woodshed. So I really like Kentucky, but I just don't see much happening in this game for them. Their offense right now, as we've talked about, is predicated on the run game. No one has been able to run on Georgia. Auburn, I think, averaged less than 2 yards a carry against Georgia. So there's just too much from the Georgia defense in my mind for Kentucky to score. I think Kentucky's defense should hopefully be able to hold their own. They've had a pretty good unit all year, but I think it's going to be a game like we've seen Georgia, where they suffocate you on defense, and then offensively they're going to lean on that run game and then take a couple shots downfield. And I'm just not sure Kentucky can hold up, especially on the road. Kentucky's had a lot of big wins this year. They were all at home. On the road against South Carolina, they barely won. So I don't see them being able to hang with Georgia. I think they're a good team, but there's a difference between being a good team and being Georgia.
Yeah, Kentucky's the feel-good story of the year so far. In the SEC, I don't know that anyone expected them to be undefeated to this point, and they've done it in a multitude of ways, right? I mean, Hank said they took LSU behind the woodshed. They put up 42. And they haven't won like that all year. For the most part, they've just been kind of suffocating you with the defense, and then scoring just enough to beat you by getting by, on the hair of their chinny chin chin, basically, and relying on Chris Rodriguez. So this week, I just don't think you can do that. Georgia has too many guys on offense. They got 105 stars on defense, and so it's just not going to matter. In my opinion, I think Vegas has it about right. I don't think they're going to be able to score on this Georgia defense. I bet they're watching film this week, licking their chops. LSU's defense is not that good. Derek Stingley's out for LSU. Yeah, that win's a great win, and they probably got Ed Orgeron fired. But now you're walking into between the hedges. And, hey, I've been telling you, Tombstone Bennett, doesn't matter. If that kid's in the game or it's JT Daniels, it doesn't matter. Georgia's a machine. And this week, JT Daniels may play. We'll see. I was looking it up earlier. He might be back, but I frankly don't think he will be. I think it'll be Stetson Bennett again, and I think he's going to put another tombstone in the yard, which he's done 2 straight weeks. So Georgia by a large margin.
Yeah, the one path for Kentucky, if you want to do this, Kentucky fans, if you listen to this, is Will Levis has a good game running the football. He becomes a mobile option, and Wan'Dale Robinson becomes an X factor. That is your path. But you're not going to line up with Chris Rodriguez and the crew and just run the ball down Georgia's throat. You're going to have to make plays in the passing game. This is the game where Liam Cohen earns his money if you pull this off. He shows his worth.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You can do that
absolutely.
Even in a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If Kentucky can find a way to score points on Georgia, then Liam Cohen is worth every penny and more. He deserves a raise because no one's been able to figure that out yet.
Yeah, and sneaky down the road, after this Georgia game, the one game that's kind of on their schedule that might be able to scare is believe it or not, the Tennessee game. It's kind of smooth sailing after you get past this one. So if they could somehow pull off an upset, I mean, we're talking East Championship and playoff at that point.
Without a doubt.
Hmm. All right, let's look at the other games this week. We'll go ahead and go to Rocky Top. Ole Miss and Tennessee. Ole Miss comes in at 13th. Over/under is at 82. That's 41-41, judging by my Simpson County, Mississippi math. Ole Miss is a 3-point favorite. And so they're probably thinking 43-40, somewhere in that ballpark. That's the score they're expecting. This is going to be a fun game. Tennessee is what Ole Miss was last year. And you got all the excitement and everything going on Rocky Top, but they're not quite there. They need a few more transfers, another signing class, and you can really start clicking.
Yeah, I think that's right. This is the Lane Bowl. I believe this is the first time Lane's going back to Knoxville since he left. I could be wrong about that.
Well, as an assistant at Alabama, he went up there.
Sure, but right, as a head coach and in the SEC at Ole Miss. So, I'm excited to see that. That's going to be fun. I'm excited for the crowd to boo him. And other than that, right, it's going to be a fun game. Tennessee is starting to click in this Heupel offense. Hendon Hooker looks great. They're scoring points, and like you said, they're Ole Miss of last year. Ole Miss now has some guys. They've had one good recruiting class under Kiffin, and Kiffin has them rolling again. And coming off a good win against Arkansas, that was a barn burner, in an instant classic. I think Ole Miss has confidence from that game. I think they've had confidence all year. Alabama was a little bit of a gut check, but other than that, I think this one's really. I think Ole Miss is probably up against the wall a little bit, right? You can't lose to Tennessee. Tennessee is, quote unquote, not good, and it's their first year with Heupel, so. I'm interested to see how Ole Miss responds to that, kind of being the favorite here. But I think that in the end, I think Ole Miss is just a better team right now. Tennessee's starting to click now, but they've had a little bit of hiccups early in the year. I think there's ways to stop them. I think it's going to be a shootout. But I think that in the end, Ole Miss probably gets them by 10.
No. Yes, it's a checker out and a sellout in Neyland. So it's going to be 102,000.
I saw. I know the people in Rocky Top are pumped up. Like you said, they got the checkered end zone. Are they going with the black uniforms? Do we know? Have we seen that? Or
I think they're going to wear traditionals. They should wear the black ones. I don't know why they did this. This is their last home game before Halloween. I mean, this is the game it should come out. They might wear them again. I do not know, but
yeah.
I think they're going to wear classics this week.
Okay. Well, if they were wearing the black, I would pick Tennessee. And part of me wants to, just because this season has been so crazy and there has been so much chaos. When I look at this game, I trust Matt Corral too much. Based on what I've seen from him at this point, I think it's going to be a close game. Tennessee can score. And we saw, what Arkansas just did to Ole Miss's defense, but I do not see Tennessee defensively being able to stop Corral and that Rebel offense. They're just too balanced right now. I mean, even in that Arkansas game, I think Corral only threw the ball like 21 or 22 times. They just have such Levy and Kiffin have such a good rhythm going right now, other than the Alabama game. But aside from that, they're just calling great games. Corral is so comfortable in that offense. He's running the ball incredibly well. So I'm just not sure or Tennessee has enough to stop them. So I definitely think it'll be a high scoring game. But yeah, I think Ole Miss will win in the end, by 7, maybe 10 points.
Yeah. Arkansas is hosting the Auburn Tigers. Arkansas is a 3.5-point favorite, and the over/under is 53.5. It is on CBS at 11 a.m. Saturday. It's a game that I'm genuinely concerned about Arkansas for this week. And it's not necessarily an Auburn's better than them, but in 2002, Ole Miss played a 7-overtime game with Arkansas. Arkansas won the game. Ole Miss probably lost 3 games because of that after that. I'm just worried about a hangover. Sam Pittman has his work cut out for him. They're a better team than Auburn, but I'm just worried about the emotional toll that last week took on.
Yeah, we'll see. I think pretty quickly if Auburn is going to be able to compete. Like you said, it should be evident pretty early on who's bringing it, because it's an 11 a.m. start. Could be a sleepy game, and both teams coming off disappointing losses. Obviously, Arkansas's had 2 in a row, so it'll be interesting to see who can get off the mat. I do like Arkansas in this game mainly because it's at home. We've seen a lot of home field advantage has played a big part this year, and the Arkansas offense right now is well, I say it's clicking. They got stomped by Georgia, but so did Auburn.
Everybody gets
So
stomped by Georgia. Yeah.
yeah, so did Auburn. I think KJ Jefferson and the weapons he has right now are farther along than Bo Nix. Even though again, Bo Nix had a great comeback against LSU, but I don't think that's saying a ton with what we've seen from LSU. So I like Arkansas in this game. They're a much more veteran team than Auburn. They should have the mentality and the capacity to get back up and understand how big of a game this is because they've already dropped 2 SEC games. So you really can't drop any more if you want to stay anywhere near the top half of the SEC West. So you gotta protect your home turf, and you have to beat a team like Auburn, who's a middle of the pack a team right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Georgia Speed Bump Bowl. So, I mean, two teams that got ran over by the dogs. Hank alluded to it earlier. This has been a complete year of chaos. Auburn has been an agent of chaos, and they've had an up and down season. I think this is, Stephen, you said it earlier as well. That this could be kind of a letdown game for Arkansas in a way because they're going to be pretty beat after that Ole Miss game and running up and down the field. As high scoring as that game was. I think Hank's right. I think that the Arkansas weapons are a little bit further along right now than Auburn is. But I think I'm going to take Auburn in this one, by a hair. I think they pull out some Auburn magic, some Bo Nix magic, and maybe take them by 3 or so, get them at the last minute. Who knows? But this year is expect the unexpected. So far, I've picked all favorites. And so this time I'm going to go with Auburn.
Nice.
Maybe another reverse spike situation, or
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Maybe he'll spike it forward this time. Number 24 to in Tiger Stadium to play LSU. They are a 10.5-point favorite over the Tigers. It actually opened at 3 points. The line has moved 7.5 points so far. The over/under is at 59 points. It's on ESPN Saturday morning. It's Keon Butte is out for the year. It's just not anything that can go wrong is going wrong for Ed Orgeron at this point. And we're as we're recording this, Louisiana's taking on Appalachian State, and I just look at Louisiana. I was like, well, that's the next LSU coach, and this game's probably not going to help because Dan Mullen's he's been looking for a statement win, and a 20-plus point win over LSU is something, no matter how bad they are, is going to look fantastic.
Yeah, I think you're right. LSU right now, I've sort of written them off. I picked Kentucky last week. I did think it would be close. Wasn't even close. For a 11 a.m. start time in Baton Rouge, with how bad this team is doing and how that fan base has kind of turned on Coach O, not sure how full the stadium's going to be. So I've got Florida winning this. I mean, LSU again continues to get whipped in the trenches every single week. They actually ran the ball a little bit better against Kentucky, but obviously didn't end up mattering. But defensively, they didn't look interested in stopping the run at all, which is exactly what Florida's going to try to do. And Emory Jones is a much better runner than Will Levis. So I think Florida will be able to lean on them in the run game. And without Keyshawn Butte, I don't know where the LSU offense turns. So I think Florida will win pretty easily, and things will continue to just spiral downwards in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have been picking LSU in recent weeks, and it's honestly just because I'm trying to will Coach O to keep that job. I think Coach O at LSU, it is probably the best fit in America for a coach. He is Louisiana through and through, and I love him in that job. And I think college football is better when LSU is good and competing for national championships. And I just wish that was Coach O, keeping him there in that spot. But it's not. It's all snowballing for him right now. There's so much swirling around this program. Now you got Keyshawn Butte who's out. John Emery has been out for weeks, and they're still trying to appeal that suspension. You've got
All right. Looks like Boss Man a little bit froze up a little bit there. You still there, Hank?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So he froze up a little bit. The next game on the catalog, we'll keep going, is number 5, Alabama. Notice the number 5 by their name. I just want you to appreciate that. Going to Starkville to take on Mississippi State. Bama is a 17-point favorite. Over-unders at 57 points. And it is on ESPN. I'm kind of looking forward to this game because I'm at the point where I'm just rooting for Alabama. Or, rooting for whoever's playing Alabama at that point, as long as Ole Miss is still winning.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I'm in the same boat, right? We need Alabama, both of us as A&M and Ole Miss fans, to lose as much as possible because they've got the tiebreaker. This game, I would love to say that Mississippi State can hang on or hang with them. They obviously just beat A&M 2 weeks ago, so it's not a crazy proposition. However, you never want to be the team playing Alabama after a loss like that. I don't know if this is necessarily a get-right game for Alabama because they've been pretty good all year long. Obviously, they suffered a loss, but it's not like they went out there and laid a dud. So I think Alabama is just too good right now. They should be able to run the ball pretty well. Brian Robinson, he had a great game against A&M as well. He's obviously getting it rolling right now, and as good as Will Rogers looked against A&M, I'm not sure that offense. I need to see it again. I think he's a good player, and I believe that Leach's system can work. I would just like to see it a little more consistently. So I've got Alabama in this one, and I think they'll send out a statement and make sure everyone knows that they're not dead. They're fine. They only lost one game, and they're going to be around at the end of the year.
Yeah, Brian Robinson, I refer to him as Dollar General Derrick Henry. And he's absolutely playing out of his mind. And you're starting to see Alabama play a little bit of that murder ball that they used to play back in the day. But, yeah, I expect Alabama to win this game fairly comfortably. I'm rooting like heck for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, but I do expect a comfortable victory for the Tide. South Carolina hosting Vanderbilt in the 4 o'clock SEC Network game that nobody is watching. I'm looking forward to seeing if Vanderbilt can be competitive. South Carolina struggles. Vanderbilt struggles. This is one of those games that could be a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and nobody's going to know because nobody besides friends and family are going to watch this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a dud. This is about as low as it gets when it comes to an in-conference SEC game. Neither team is good, but I've got South Carolina here. They are not a good team, and they struggle, especially offensively, to move the ball. But their defense is not terrible. I think they'll be able to. Hold Ken Seals and that Vanderbilt offense to not much production. So I think it'll be kind of a sloppy game, but it's something where I think you'll look up at the end and South Carolina will have won, 28-10 or 24-10, something like that would be my guess. But I don't intend on tuning into this one very much.
No. Well, since Boss Man dropped off, we're finishing up a little bit early because there's not as many opinions on certain games. But hope everybody enjoyed this Biscuits and SEC Week 7 preview. Tune in next week for more of the same. This will be up Friday night, but you can catch it if you want it early on our Patreon. But for the Biscuits and SEC crew, I'm Stephen Willis. Thank you for watching, and tune in next time.
Yep. Thank you, Stephen.